The increase in tariffs between the United States, Mexico, Canada, and China has several economic consequences that affect citizens, companies, and governments. Here is an analysis of their effects on different sectors. 1. Consequences for citizens. Price increase. Tariffs make imported products more expensive, which translates into higher costs for consumers. For example, if the U.S. imposes tariffs on Chinese products, goods imported from China become more expensive in the U.S. Fewer consumer options. With higher tariffs, some foreign products may disappear from the market or become inaccessible. Loss of jobs in affected sectors. Industries that depend on imported inputs may reduce their production, which affects employment. Benefit in protected sectors. Some national industries may grow by having less foreign competition, which favors job creation in those sectors. 2. Impact on countries' debt. United States. The trade war can reduce economic growth, affecting tax collection and increasing the fiscal deficit. In addition, tariffs can provoke retaliation from other countries, reducing U.S. exports. Mexico and Canada. Both countries are highly dependent on trade with the U.S., so an increase in tariffs would hurt their exports and could slow economic growth, increasing pressure on public debt. China. Being an export economy, an increase in tariffs in the U.S. can reduce its foreign trade income, affecting its economic growth and increasing its level of indebtedness if it has to stimulate the economy internally. 3. Benefiters and losers. Benefiters. Domestic industries protected by tariffs, for example, steel production in the U.S. if tariffs are applied to Chinese steel. Governments that depend on tariff revenue, since they can generate additional income, although this is usually temporary and with negative long-term effects. Some local producers in Mexico and Canada do manage to replace imports from the U.S. and China with domestic production. Those harmed, consumers, due to higher prices. Exporters, as their products may become more expensive in foreign markets due to retaliatory tariffs. Companies that rely on imported inputs, such as the auto industry in Mexico and Canada, which needs components from the U.S. and China. Small businesses, which are less able to absorb additional costs from tariffs. In general, tariffs may benefit specific industries in the short term, but they often negatively affect the overall economy by reducing trade and increasing economic uncertainty. Raising tariffs as a strategy to reduce U.S. debt is inefficient because it creates inflation, makes goods and services more expensive, reduces trade, and can lead to unemployment. There are more effective alternatives to reduce debt without negatively affecting the global economy. Some options include: 1. Reducing unnecessary public spending, optimizing the federal budget, eliminating inefficient or redundant programs without affecting essential sectors such as health, education, and social security. Fewer subsidies to specific industries. Some sectors receive multi-million-dollar subsidies, for example, agriculture and energy. Gradually reducing them can alleviate the deficit without immediate impact on the economy. Greater efficiency in defense. The U.S. has the largest military budget in the world. Strategic cuts without compromising security can free up resources to reduce debt. 2. Tax reform to increase revenue without affecting the middle class, reducing tax evasion and avoidance. Large corporations and high-income individuals take advantage of tax loopholes to pay less taxes. A more efficient system could increase revenue without the need to raise rates. Adjust taxes on large fortunes and corporations. A more progressive tax on the highest incomes and on large technological and financial companies could generate more revenue without curbing investment. 3. Boost economic growth, encourage innovation and investment. Policies that encourage domestic production without resorting to tariffs, for example, credits to small businesses, investment in technological and energy infrastructure. Attract more foreign investment. A stable and predictable regulatory environment can increase the confidence of foreign investors and strengthen the economy. Improve education and job training, preparing workers for growing sectors, technology, renewable energy, health, increases productivity and tax revenues. 4. Reform the health system. The U.S. spends more on health than any other country, but without better results compared to other developed nations. A more efficient system could reduce government spending on programs such as Medicare and Medicaid. 5. Modernize the pension system. The Social Security program faces financial pressures. Reforms such as gradually raising the retirement age or adjusting benefits based on income could make it more sustainable without affecting the most vulnerable sectors. Conclusion: raising tariffs is a short-term solution with negative long-term consequences. Instead, a combination of reducing unnecessary spending, fair tax reform, promoting economic growth and improvements in key sectors such as health and pensions would be more efficient in reducing debt without harming citizens. The increase in tariffs during the Donald Trump administration was driven primarily by a group of advisors and economists with a protectionist view of trade. Although Trump promoted these policies as part of his America First agenda, he relied on several key figures who influenced his decisions. Key advisors and architects of Trump's tariff policy: 1. Peter Navarro, director of the White House National Trade Council, a leading proponent of tariffs and an aggressive stance against China. Author of the book Death by China, where he argues that trade with China hurts the U.S. Promoted the idea that tariffs would help reduce the trade deficit and strengthen American industry. 2. Robert Lighthizer, U.S. Trade Representative, led the renegotiation of the North American Free Trade Agreement, NAFTA, which led to the USMCA. Advocate of protectionist measures and applying trade sanctions to pressure other countries. He supported tariffs as a negotiating strategy with China, Mexico, and Canada. 3. Wilbur Ross, Secretary of Commerce, businessman and advisor who supported raising tariffs, especially in sectors such as steel and aluminum. He believed that the U.S. should become less dependent on foreign imports and strengthen domestic production. 4. Steve Bannon, former White House chief strategist. Although he left the government in 2017, he helped establish the administration's protectionist vision. He believed in an economic war with China to restore U.S. industrial supremacy. 5. Larry Kudlow, director of the National Economic Council, 2018 to 2021. Although he was initially a proponent of free trade, he ended up supporting some of Trump's tariff measures. Trump's own ideas or influence of advisors? Trump had a protectionist view of trade for decades, but his tariff strategy was shaped by advisors